This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Everybody in your crew identifies as either Big Mac Burger, McNuggets, or McCrispy Sandwich. But you're the Filet-O-Fish Sandwich all day. That crispy fish, that savory tartar sauce, that melty cheese, that pillowy bun. Yeah, you get it. Every time.
And if you love the Filet-O-Fish, right now you can catch two of the classics you love for just $6. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
They're all clearly spooked. I ask what happened, and they tell me that what sounded like the shrieks of a dozen children had just echoed throughout the barn. It was extremely strange. I was inside the barn, just using the restroom, and I didn't hear a thing.
He stares like he wants to do something to me and doesn't respond when I talk to him directly, which is so unnerving.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 4 real stories that will fill you with terror. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, Catherine Restivo narrates a story from Wonderful Crow 3570. It might not be worth your job to complain about a creepy coworker, but it might cost you your life.
I started working at my job a few months ago, and up until recently, I had never met this coworker who we'll call Twinkle Toes. He walks on his toes. And as it turns out, he was asked to work from home for the first few months I was working here, so he just came back to the office full time. He started to walk by my desk twice a day, which is nowhere near his. As he walks by, he stares at me like Hannibal Lecter would and makes an occasional remark about me, something like, "Burning the midnight oil, huh?" The staring is so unnerving. My red flag went right up, and I hadn't even officially met him yet. I didn't know his name until a much later date. I share a workspace with a coworker that we'll call Amber. And last week, we were having a conversation when Twinkle Toes finally approached the desk. He went over to her side to be part of the conversation, but he stared at me the whole time. He didn't look away once, even when she spoke directly to him and he answered. As I left, I made it very clear that I'm married, saying, "Well, I'm going home to my sick husband, and I'll make him some of that soup we talked about." Amber texted me shortly after. Twinkle Toes just asked if you were single. She also added that he's never stopped to talk to her in the 2 years they've worked there. I brushed the text off, but the following week, he walked past several times, staring all the same. And he's the only one from his department who even walks by our desks, let alone has work to do in our section of the office. One day, I left a few minutes later than normal, and as I headed down and out of the building, he was in the middle of my path, with no one else around, just staring at me as I walked towards him. I said, "Hi," and waved, but he didn't say anything back, not moving out of my way. Before I ran into him, I turned around and went back into the office. I waited a few minutes before leaving through a different exit, and took the long way to my car, looking over my shoulder to make sure he didn't follow me. The next day was a little out of the ordinary at work, and I was even further away from Twinkletoes' department to assist other employees temporarily. He came even farther out of his way to where I was and talked to the employees I was with while staring at me as I walked around. I said hi and waved, but he just stared. When he finally left, the other employees said he's never been to their area to talk, and they assumed he was there just to watch me. I totally freaked out and asked my supervisor what to do. Apparently, he has a history of fixating on women and getting extremely awkward with them, but has never done anything to physically harm anyone. Every day, I go on a walk around our building for my lunch, and everyone in the office I work with knows this. He mentioned to some other employees at a different desk that he was planning to go on a walk around the same time he thinks I'll take my lunch. They told me that if I see him out there, to not let him catch up to me. I spoke with my manager and requested for security to escort me or watch me go to my car. My manager said they will have a discussion with him, but in the meantime, I need to leave earlier and ask Amber to walk with me out to my car, and gave me the number for security just in case. I told my husband, and he thinks I'm making the right call with security, but I might need to be more aggressive towards Twinkletoes at work. My coworkers think I need to be nice to him to keep it from getting worse. I've never had a conversation with this guy. I don't know anything about him, except his tendency to stare, follow me in parts of the building that are totally out of his way, and ignore everything I say. Part of me thinks he's just some harmless, socially awkward guy who doesn't know how to handle his emotions. But he stares like he wants to do something to me, and doesn't respond when I talk to him directly, which is so unnerving. I don't want to be a burden on my coworkers, but I can't go 8 hours a day in an environment that I don't feel safe in.
Our next story is about the danger of obsession, the folly of love, and a girl named Bernice, narrated by Brian Jeffords.
Back around 1991, I was 20 and newly single from my first real heartbreak. I was unemployed and trying to find ways to spend the hours, maybe make some new acquaintances. I started hanging out with someone my friend had met at church and that person's group of friends. They were more like street church people. No denomination, no crazy beliefs or practices, just, your basic Christian stuff. There were about 5 of these friends sharing a big apartment that we'd all hang out at, and many people would drop by now and then. One time, a new friend dropped by one day, Bernice. A very pretty girl, by the way, but 7 to 8 years older than I was, and when you're 20, that's a pretty significant age difference, if you ask me. But whatever. Even though I thought she was pretty, I wasn't immediately into her or anything. However, once Bernice saw me at the apartment, she would not stop staring at me. She didn't stop the entire time she was there, and she was super obvious about it. Everyone at the apartment could tell she was acting strange, and it was creeping me out. They were all watching her and noticing that she was hyper-fixated on me. I remember them trying to talk to her to get her to snap out of it, but she barely acknowledged anyone else was there. There was so much crazy tension in the couple of hours she was around. I was new among this group and a shy person in general, so I didn't want to come out and ask, what the fuck is going on, like I probably should have. I just stayed in my corner and kept watching TV and tried to not look in her direction. Once she finally left and we could all breathe again, my friends admitted to me that she had a few psychological problems, if my memory serves. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly what they said about her, but after this revelation, her weird behavior made a smidge more sense. Maybe I was in a weird headspace about it because of my recent breakup. It still didn't point to what all this had to do with her fixation toward me that night. Maybe it was because I was the new guy. Who knows, I thought to myself. Regardless, it was disturbing and made me anxious about seeing her again. I dropped by the apartment again, maybe a week later, and everyone there is staring at me when I walk through the door. "What's going on?" I ask. "Bernice was here today." "And?" "She left a letter that she wrote for you here." Sitting on the table was a 3-page letter that Bernice had left for anyone to read, addressed to me. I suppose they all had read it already because they were all freaking out, telling me that it wasn't good. From what I recall, she starts out with a long, rambling paragraph about when she first saw me, she thought I was Jesus. And she went on and on about it, saying things like, "I'm not 100% sure if you are or not, but I think you are." She wrote, "I love you with all my heart. Can't stop thinking about you. I just want to be together." I could go on. Well, I almost shit myself halfway through reading this thing. Everyone in the room was filled with suspense as they watched me read it. Once I was done, I was probably as pale as a ghost. I remember everyone telling me not to worry about it too badly and that they would make sure Bernice didn't come around much anymore, especially if I was there. Well, about a year passed and I hadn't seen Bernice or heard about her or anything. I was in a relatively small town, though, so it felt inevitable that I bumped into her at a club. Damn it. It was only a couple of days before Christmas, so I said hello and happy holidays when she came right up to me after seeing me. My heart was in my throat. I'm sure I started sweating profusely on the spot. At first, we had a very normal conversation, a chit-chat about how we were doing, etc. I was hoping, praying that she had come to her senses a little. I even relaxed a little bit, letting my guard down. My mistake. She drops a crazy proposal and invites me over for Christmas dinner at her mom's house, just the 3 of us. I made something up about being busy and got out of there pretty damn quick. Just like I should have predicted, she was way too much, way too fast. Inviting someone you barely know over for an intimate Christmas dinner would be strange under normal circumstances, but these weren't normal.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Everybody in your crew identifies as either Big Mac Burger, McNuggets, or McCrispy Sandwich. But you're the Filet-O-Fish Sandwich all day. That crispy fish, that savory tartar sauce, that melty cheese, that pillowy bun. Yeah, you get it. Every time.
And if you love the Filet-O-Fish, right now you can catch 2 of the classics you love for just $6. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our next true tale of real horror comes to us from Jolly Farm 3702 and is narrated by Meghan Barylak. If you ignore the signs, you may find yourself on a dangerous path.
I've always experienced paranormal things. My earliest memory of something paranormal was as early as age 4. I've got a lot of stories about the things I've witnessed over time, but this one is from my time living in rural Missouri. In 2009, I moved in with my boyfriend, now husband, and his family. They lived in a beautiful farmhouse surrounded by several acres of land. The nearest neighbor was probably half a mile down the road, very quiet. This home has a large basement that was basically a 2-bedroom apartment, which was where my husband and I lived. As soon as I moved in, I started to notice strange sounds and see strange things. I didn't mention these things to him because I didn't want him to think I was crazy, but some of those things still scare me to this day when I think back on them. Right outside of our bedroom door was a long hallway that led to the staircase and another bedroom. We were the only two people to ever go into the basement. One night, we were already in bed and watching TV when we began to hear extremely heavy footsteps pacing up and down the hallway. It was so heavy that we thought maybe someone had broken into the house and was wearing heavy work boots or something. When we turned the television off and listened closely, we could hear it pass by our door, and it seemed to go towards the end of the hall before turning and coming back our way. At this point, our dog was growling and looking towards the door. With the TV off, the bedroom was pitch black dark. My husband called out hello, and the sound of the boots stopped. He texted his mother to ask if she was downstairs. She was the only other person in the house. She responded that she was sleeping. My husband started to get up to find out who was in the house, and he made it about halfway to the door when all of a sudden it flew open. It was such a force that the knob knocked a small hole in the wall. At that point, our dog went crazy with his barking and ran to hide under a table. The bedroom was still extremely dark, so my husband tried to hurry and turn the lights on. And as soon as they came on, silence. He ran into the hallway looking around, but neither of us found anything after searching the whole basement. One night, we're sitting in the basement living room and watching TV. Behind the living room area was a kitchen area that had a long bar. On top of the bar were a couple of stools and a phone on a charger. This particular night, we were the only ones at home, as everyone else had gone out to dinner. We started to hear a weird sound, almost like someone was moving furniture across the floor. We lower the volume on the TV so we can hear things better when we hear it again. All of a sudden, we hear a very loud crashing sound right behind us, followed by the feeling of something hitting the back of the couch. We both jumped up, terrified, and looked behind us to find the bar stools on the floor behind the couch. Keep in mind, the bar was 14 or 15 feet from where the couch is. If they simply fell, there was no possible way they would have done that. The phone was thrown too, 10 feet away on the floor. After looking around for a moment, we literally sprinted up the stairs and went outside until we could calm down. I was absolutely terrified, and I feared the basement after that. We started to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway too. Each time we would see it, it would be still before slowly moving away from us. It got to the point that we would try to ignore it until it went away. We told his mom and stepdad. They told us that they saw and heard things too. They would be upstairs and hear the toilet flush in our bathroom, followed by the sink, then silence. At night, if we would come upstairs and walk through the house while lights were off, it felt like we were being watched. We made the mistake of trying to hold a seance one evening. We wanted to ask and see what was there, or maybe what they wanted. We were sitting in the kitchen upstairs in the main part of the house. There is an arched doorway to exit the kitchen, and just to the right, as you walk through the arched doorway, was the stairs leading back down into the basement. As we're asking if anyone would like to talk to us, we hear what sounds like someone running up the stairs from the basement, those heavy thumping footsteps. His mom and little sister were with us at the table, and all four jumped up, scared as hell. We all looked at the doorway to see who was coming up those stairs, but as soon as it seemed like it was nearing the top of the stairs, everything went silent. We all had to go outside to calm down before we could gather the courage to come back inside. And these weren't even all of the events that we witnessed while living in that house. I asked my husband if he had noticed any of these things happening before now, and he said that things happened, but nowhere near this bad since I moved in. His mother told me the same thing. We ended up going to the library and speaking with a local historian. She told us that in the late 70s, a young woman had committed suicide in the home, down in the basement. She told us that a young woman who lived in the house had become very depressed and hung herself in the area right by the basement kitchen.
Our final story is narrated by Aikem Bailum about a strange occurrence at the Hummingbird Nest Ranch.
The names and places have been changed, but back in January 2020, I worked as a production assistant on the set of NBC's The Bachelor, Listen to Your Heart. The show was filmed at the Hummingbird Nest Ranch in Simi Valley, California. This location is over 100 years old and has what you would call a lurid history. There were reports of murders, drownings, and whatever else about the property. Additionally, the whole property is on the other side of the ridge where the Manson cult would conduct their meetings in a cave. In fact, there was a big rock behind the barn with a huge M scratched on it. The buildings on the ranch included the main mansion, a barn at the back of the property which housed the production office, and several small casitas, tiny two-bedroom homes on the outskirts of the property. It was rumored that Casita 5 was the most haunted of all the casitas. After shooting for The Bachelor was done, I was part of the skeleton crew wrapping up the set, working around the clock to help the production pack everything up. So one night, we all get called to the barn to regroup around midnight. We were working in 12-hour shifts round the clock, so I quickly ran to use the restroom in the barn while I had a moment before the meeting. When I came out, I put my walkie-talkie back in and heard everyone freaking out over the channel. I run to the production managers and the rest of the production team in the barn, and they're all clearly spooked, saying, "Did you hear that? That was insane." I ask what happened, and they tell me that what sounded like the shrieks of a dozen children had just echoed throughout the barn. I asked if it could have been a mountain lion because those had been spotted in the ridge surrounding the ranch while we were in production. They told me it couldn't have been, that it sounded like dozens of shrieks, and that it was coming from inside the barn, not outside. It was extremely strange. I was inside the barn, just using the restroom, and I didn't hear a thing. The night wears on. We're assigned a job to go pick up all of NBC's fire extinguishers from around the property, and to be sure to leave the ones that belong to the ranch. We split up in groups of 3 to 4, because it's night, the mountain lion thing, and everyone is generally spooked from the events in the barn. I'm assigned to sweep the casitas with my coworkers, who we'll call Lily and Amanda, and look for the fire extinguishers. We're going through the casitas one by one and looking for fire extinguishers. By this point, it's 1 a.m., and we go quickly through the first 3 together as a group. At Casita 4, Amanda wanders off up the path towards Casita 5, and Lily and I sort of slowly make our way, just talking, not really making haste. But as we enter Casita 5, Amanda comes into the main living room from the side room and sees us enter. She says, "Did you guys check Casita 6 and come back for me?" "No, we just got here. You were ahead of us." She's confused. "Why did you leave and come back in?" she says. "We didn't. We just came in here. Stop messing with me." "We're not." "Then who was I just talking to?" When Amanda was in the side room, she heard someone walking around in the other room, and Amanda said, "Hey Lily, do you see any fire extinguishers?" And then heard, in Lily's voice, "No." That was why Amanda was so confused when we walked in. To this day, I don't think she believes that we weren't just pulling her leg. She refused to talk about it for the rest of the time it took to wrap the set, and even after.
I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producers are Noah Fouts and Elizabeth Flood. Our audio engineer is Nathan Corson. Executive producers Bridget Coyne and Gerardo Orlando. Until next time, stay safe out there.
Everybody in your crew identifies as either Big Mac Burger, McNuggets, or McCrispy Sandwich. But you're the Filet-O-Fish Sandwich all day. That crispy fish, that savory tartar sauce, that melty cheese, that pillowy bun. Yeah, you get it. Every time.
And if you love the Filet-O-Fish, right now you can catch two of the classics you love for just $6. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.